I now recognize myself for an opening statement. We're at a critical point in Venezuela's history. Severe widespread shortages in food, electricity, medicine, and the basic goods within what was once the richest country in Latin America have led to starvation, the highest infant mortality rate in the world, and horrific conditions in the hospitals. Today, Venezuela is on the edge of a complete meltdown. The country has the highest inflation rate in the world with a falling GDP. Its oil company, PDVSA, is not generating enough revenue, and the Venezuelan currency is worthless. Gross economic mismanagement, widespread corruption throughout the government, and erosion of democracy, rule of law, and human rights in the country have led Venezuela to its sad state today. Americans should take note. Venezuela is a case study for the failures of socialism. This is the third hearing that this subcommittee has held on Venezuela since I became the chairman in January of 2015, and we will remain deeply concerned for the welfare of the Venezuelan people and potential regional implications from Venezuela's instability. Venezuela has the largest oil and second largest gold reserves in the world, but incredibly, under President Maduro's tenure and dating back to President Chavez's tenure, the country has become practically a failed state. Last year, the economy shrank by almost 17%. And this year, the International Monetary Fund estimates that inflation will increase to over 1,600%. The poverty rate is the highest in 4 decades, and the homicide rate is at a 35-year high. Such indicators provide little hope for a recovery, absent significant changes in the country's policies. Those who can afford to leave are fleeing the country in droves. Thousands have gone to Chile, Colombia, and Brazil, seeking food and medicine. And here at home, Venezuelans make up the largest percentage of asylum requests to the United States, with those numbers growing 150% since 2015, according to the United States Department of Homeland Security. If the crisis in Venezuela continues, we could all have a situation on our hands where we are faced with massive refugee flows and public health threats from rising numbers of malaria and diphtheria cases in Venezuela, and those do not respect borders. In addition, Venezuela's PDVSA continues to creep along, but corruption and low oil prices have led to slower output. This situation has the potential to greatly impact gas prices here at home, as the United States is the third largest importer of Venezuelan oil. The recent news that PDVSA received a $1.5 billion loan in exchange for giving Russia's state-owned oil company Rosneft 49.1% of its shares in Citgo is problematic for U.S. interest. Should Venezuela default on its debt obligation to Rosneft, the Russians would become the second largest foreign owner of U.S. refining capacity, and thereby take control of a critical U.S. energy infrastructure, including 3 U.S. refineries and a network of pipelines. This is an untenable situation and undermines U.S. energy security interest. Furthermore, Venezuela's PetroCaribe program no longer provides energy with the same preferential financing terms as it did before. Its beneficiaries in the Caribbean and Central America should consider alternatives for their own energy security, including from the United States' own abundance of oil and natural gas. Moreover, the political landscape in Venezuela looks bleak as well. While the people turned out in droves last year and spoke loudly at the ballot box in December of 2015, giving the opposition a 2/3 supermajority in the legislature, the Maduro government refuses to listen to its citizens. Instead, Maduro has used the Supreme Court and Electoral Commission to nullify all legislative action, and he has thrown over 100 political prisoners in jail. Maduro refuses to submit to the people's accountability. He's stolen their right of free expression, nullified their vote, and continues trampling on the Constitution and the rule of law. This month, OAS Secretary General Almagro provided evidence of the further deterioration of the state of affairs in Venezuela, and has issued yet another call for the Venezuelan government to hold free and open general elections. On March 23rd, 14 countries in the Americas released a joint declaration supporting Almagro's efforts, calling for Venezuela to hold elections, affirm democratic institutions, and free all political prisoners. The U.S. supported that effort, and while it called for dialogue, it also left open the possibility for further action, including suspension of Venezuela from the OAS if change does not occur. While I am hopeful that this declaration will result in a change in Maduro's behavior, the past dialogue efforts have all failed to do just that. The OAS member states need to think very carefully about how long to give the Venezuelan government to comply, as this declaration reminds me of a very similar situation last year in the OAS. It also begs the question for the Trump administration: how is U.S. policy toward Venezuela today any different than it was a year ago? Last December, Mercosur suspended Venezuela for failing to meet membership requirements. It is my view that the OAS should take the same approach if Maduro does not immediately call for elections and change his behavior toward his own citizens. As an aside, it has come to my attention that the Dominican Republic, El Salvador, and Haiti are not supporting the OAS General Secretary's efforts to promote democracy in Venezuela. If this is the case, I think it would be difficult for the United States Congress to justify continued U.S. financial assistance to these countries, and I respectfully urge them to reconsider and support democracy in Venezuela. In conclusion, the United States is watching the situation in Venezuela closely. Last year, I, along with Ranking Member Sears and nearly 30 members of Congress, urged the Obama administration to advocate for the release of Francisco Marquez and Joshua Holt from prison there in Venezuela. Today, Francisco is free, and he's sitting with us today in the audience. Francisco, I applaud your courage in the face of extreme brutality. If you'll stand to be recognized.